So now we're going to talk about how you apply the methodology and the action of Socratic Design Academy in Amsterdam, and the way we are expanding this to make cities, make new cultures, make new ways of living through what we call city renaissance. So explain us, how can we actually change cities, change districts, change the lives of the citizens and of all of us together?
Yes. Well, basically, we are in a period of danger for democracy. We have a threat of fascism, and we had a democracy model where it was mostly about voting. Now we Socratic design, like we've seen in the second part of this theory, we saw that we have a thinking which provokes a lot of crisis. And this thinking is, people are to mistrust, people are a brain with a machine, nature is a mechanism, property is essential, and AI is the same like we think, it's our way of thinking. This is a dramatic thinking which causes a lot of crisis. But also, if we look at cities, cities are based on different departments of governance, different departments of companies, and all these different silos and all these different disciplines have different objects of what is a human being, what is a citizen, and what to do. So, for instance, you have healthcare, you have education, you have security, you have business, you have traffic, and all its different problems, and the citizen is just a victim of all these different entities. What we do in the Renaissance city is we find out a new democracy where people will be no longer victims of societal thinking, where they are no longer passive entities, where citizens will basically investigate what is a human being, who am I, what is my addictive thought, can we together create a human practice that we can flourish as human beings in a district, in a small district. Can we design houses? To give you an example, now houses are just blocks where people are forced in like animals and they put a name on it, house.
Yeah.
Well, basically it's invented by abstract architects. But if you ask people that what we do in Amsterdam, we ask a group of people of 20, 30, 40, how do you want to live? You get a complete different narrative. People want to be together, want to live not alone, want to live with several generations, want to have private space, but not always. So it's a complete different narrative than what architects have made us or what building companies have gave us. And the building companies, of course, they think about profits, cheap, and they think of regulations and so on and so on. So we have to start over again. How can we design our living environments ourselves? That means that we have to generate new thinking, but it cannot come from the government because the government is into Thomas Hobbes, is into Locke, is at all these philosophies which created this governance thinking. So if we want to solve this, all we have to do is completely stop this, you can say, addictive thinking and create another thing, not in government, but the citizens themselves. So they make an emerging, collective, embodied thinking. That means they're gonna have to sit together with their presence, their physical presence. They will create an art of listening. Because they create the art of listening, they will leave behind their ego thinking. They create this emerging voice together, and this togetherness, this intelligence, what Plato would say, the wise people, but in Plato's vision it would be the philosophers, and we say for the first time in history, people can also philosophize. They never knew this. So we make, and that can be educated people, non-educated people, women, black, white, red, all sorts of people are doing this. They're doing, we call it philosophication, and they start thinking, wow, we can live this way, we don't need stones, we want wood, etc. Doesn't matter. They become more and more human. And this is the revolution of letting people decide for themselves, but make them aware that their thinking is addictive, trapped, imprisoned in this old mechanistic, you can say dualistic, logical thinking. But when we go to this wise, emerging, collective, embodied thinking, we can create this human stuff. And why is it so important for cities? Well, Amsterdam in the 17th, 16th century was the start of democracy, the start of liberty, of free thinking, especially with thinkers like Descartes and Spinoza. And then after that, we have like hundreds years of, you can say, mechanical imprisonment. So we now want them again to free, but not by philosophers, but do philosophy yourself. So this is the strongest way of having a democracy, because people who are being governed are the government themselves. So they get all the responsibility. And people would say, you cannot trust people, they are too stupid. And these are two assumptions which we have for 300 years, and they don't fit, because if we have experienced this with people giving educational system, giving a lot of complexity, they can solve a lot of problems for the city of Amsterdam, they've done it. We give people the tools to create houses and districts, and they will make it. So we have now a scenario of young people creating a district. We're looking for the building companies, and this is the basic, real, vital democracy. And this is the way to beat fascism, because everybody joins. Because in the beginning, there were people, black people, who say, I'm going to the Black Panther, because there's racism, extreme right-wing people, but in this process, everybody becomes a human participant.
Yeah. I think it's important what you say, where the governed become the governors, because most of the time people blame the government for the situation, for all the failures, for the inflation, for whatever thing they live suffering of. But while the governance is actually trying to be neutral and just organize things, and we are the main stream that makes the movement for the government, but we aren't taking this role, and we actually can. And I think it's important what you say, it's always together, because it's about organizing the interactions, and that's what we do. We organize the interactions because in a certain way where people can actually understand what we want to change, because we aren't aware of what we want to change. And how does this collective emerging mind come about when we organize those trainings for people? How is this changing people and the ways they organize themselves?
Well, you have to do all this in sequence, because people have to be aware, I am thinking this way. Governance has to be prepared to go into an experiment. And most of the governance citizens relationship is now done as a business, as a market. So people say, this is my client. No, it's not your client, it's your citizen. So this whole management thinking, managerial thinking, is killing our whole society, because people will say more and more, what's the price of this, what's the price of this, etc. So we have to change that thinking. We do that in the dialogues that we explained in the previous videos. When you change this, overnight people get an awareness in dialogues, they get a contact which are real human needs. And when we are there, we can just design scenarios. So we have digital tools by young citizens, developed by young startups, Then they draw a whole district. And then we say, wow, this was a video, for instance. And then we send it to building companies, to the government, to you can say house corporations. All that sort of organizations can mobilize because of this, you can say, attractive, completely different narrative. And people will say, wow, we want to join, but we are not capable to do it because our organization is such and such. So then we have to change the organization. So everything can move if you give an attractive future narrative. And you make this future narrative with a collective emerging wisdom. And that is a creative process. But then people say, why cannot we live that way? And that's this, when you switch the whole button of it's all going to be horrible, we're going to have Trump, we're going to have fascism. No, we can make, in this city renaissance, we can make the ideal situation where you can live, maybe not that rich with all this Tesla and all these products, electronics, maybe in a better human way of living. So that's the whole story. But people want to change the world, mostly, without changing themselves.
Exactly.
And we say, you are the cause of all this horrible stuff because you produce it.
Yeah.
So David Bohm will say, you look at the world to your screen of thoughts, and the screen of thoughts is a horrible system because you inherited from wrong philosophies. So nobody knows that Thomas Hobbes is in their head, or Locke, or whatever. So we should shift from that philosophies to our new philosophies, and the examples are Plato, Spinoza, Descartes, are people who went into themselves, looking how does my thinking is working. So the funny thing is, or the interesting thing is, because I'm a physicist, physicists always looking for invariance. What is invariant everywhere? And I can tell everybody in all my 1,000 of experience with human beings in Turkey, in the USA, in Finland, in Spain, in Holland, whatever, even in Germany, that all the human beings have basically the same desires. And it's like animals. We also say this is all deers or all beer or salmons. We can also say all humans, they're just the same. But we made up this illusions of I'm a unique human being, and that is causing this, you can say, this alienation, the philosopher Marx would say. We are completely alienated from what a human being can be, and nowadays it's even horrible for young people who are grown up with digital media, social media. There are a lot of depression in young people, suicide attempt, loneliness, that sort of horrible stuff. We created this ourselves. So everybody who doesn't want to change himself or herself is a cause of this crisis. So if you want to prevent this crisis, gonna change yourself, enjoy in the Renaissance city, and make new futures together. And it can be completely different, can also be a completely different economy. Because if we have new desires, we have new businesses.
I think it's necessary to recognize the urge of this, because as you say, I think everyone is aware and recognizes that we aren't living the way we would like to live. And we see how the kids, how the children are being on the screens all day long, how their suicide rates are going up, literally since the phone and the social media has appeared. And this whole culture we are living in isn't the one we would like to live in. But we still keep on reenacting this in our daily lives without being aware, because we aren't aware of our presumptions. And we need to actually push through them, recognize them, experience them, and then we can change our thinking. And just to finish off, how would you express this contrast between our automatic thoughts which are running our daily lives and actual experience, as you call it, embodied collective emerging experience, which actually is able to change our way of understanding.
Well, a simple example is like we are completely hostage of sugar satisfaction. Mostly 80% of the food is sugar, and people are a hostage of this inclination to buy, to eat, you can say, sweet stuff, but
Yeah.
almost everything is sweet stuff. So we can't get rid of that. So you have to get rid of this. For thinking, it's the same. You have to get rid of these thoughts that keep you fixed on technique, social media, how do I look, your exterior, your electronic goods, or your money, or your etc., etc. So you have to get rid of it, like the sugar addiction. And what is the result? If you get rid of it, you will find, wow, this is a human being. Instead of fleeing in your addictive behavior, confronting yourself, what is a human being? Before you die, every person should have the experience what it is to be a human being without addictive harness, without addictive armor, without compelling, without this hostage, this brain which is not thinking. This brain is basically a sort of dictatorship in your embodiment. So trust your embodiment more, and that's Spinoza. Try to all the time realize, what do I feel where in my body? And some people, and it's called also some religious, like for instance in the Protestant, you are not allowed to feel in your body. Well, you have, there is the you can say the origin of your rebirth, of your renaissance. If you think, what do I feel in my body when I do this, when I'm there with that person? So you can exercise this. And the embodiment is basically also what we as tribal people before the Industrial Revolution has far more empathic feelings, far more embodiment feelings, far more togetherness feelings. So in this new way of human being, we are not a rational agent, dead from the neck down, they call it. We are embodiments, and the embodiments can enjoy life, and then they can die, satisfaction. And now people die, before they die, they have so much regret. I should have more time this, I should have done that, I should have made music, all these horrible sorrow stories. Forget it, stop reenacting this stupid thinking, and we can do it alone and together in this city renaissance. So we can start in a small district in Barcelona, we can start in Poble Sec, or Poblenou, or whatever, or even in Sarrier, all human beings. So we can just change the district and do an investigation before you die, what is real living.
Exactly. I think it's important what you have remarked right now about the being aware of those preoccupations that aren't making you able to be actually together, and that remain and that keep you on an isolated level, always worrying and having thoughts, and we actually can come back to experience, as you say, into the embodiment of an interaction. And we have to investigate that, because that's the way to get out of depression, as we know, to get out of this social media comparison. When we can actually come back together, we can see how we can change into a better situation, instead of only keeping us away and being behind those screen of thoughts. And this is what we are going to do with City Renaissance.
Yeah.
And we are currently doing in Amsterdam.
And we're going to do it in Barcelona.
Exactly.
So, great.